do is I actually wrote some notes. I was going to kind of give everybody a little bit of a run past here on what we're going to be doing and encourage people that if you're new here, if you don't care for the story that we're on, just wait a couple minutes because we're going to cover a couple of dozen stories here. And the point of that is to give everybody a place to go back to and pull threads on their own. But so tonight, it's we're going to be kind of taking a loop around. Nothing's Trudeau's fault, just like it's not Keir Starmer's fault, not even World War III. How's it going at the G20, Lord Farquaad? A little bit of history. We're going to talk about some of the Ukraine and Nazi relationship that is still going on here in Canada, and an inquiry that you guys are not hearing about anywhere, guaranteed, because nobody else is talking about it. Well, that's why you love this platform. And what is some of the real reasons behind war? And why the distractions? So we're going to start this little epic journey through the insanity of Swamp Zombies Meat Muppets with a little clip from Jace or Brian Lilly.
Remember when Justin Trudeau used to believe in government accountability and even cabinet ministers resigning when they make mistakes? Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist for the Toronto
We're
Sun.
going to be talking about some
Justin Trudeau
resignations.
used to think that the government should be held accountable. Justin Trudeau used to think that if a cabinet minister was offside, if they did something wrong, they should lose their position. Now, look at Randy Boissonnault. This man's been mired in scandal since the summer. Claims of him doing government business while he's in cabinet, his company getting government contracts by claiming to be Indigenous while they're not. Now, the company sharing a post office box with someone who's been busted multiple times on charges of cocaine. It's all looking very bad, but Justin Trudeau's not pushing Randy Boissonnault out of the way.
Not just busted on charges of cocaine, but 210 kilos of cocaine. That's like almost 500 pounds of cocaine.
He's standing by him. He's defending him. And by the way, Boissonnault's just one scandal. We'll get to the rest in a minute. Compare that to what he used to say. Check out this tweet from Justin Trudeau, February 2011. Fight for democracy. Sign the petition. Bev Oda must resign. Enough lying to Canadians. It was over a $16 glass of orange juice the minister ordered when she just called down a room service and could send up some breakfast while staying in an expensive hotel in London. It wasn't a $6,000 hotel, but it was pretty expensive. That was a firing offense to Trudeau. Or check out this tweet from October 2013. It's hard not to feel disappointed in your government when every day there is a new scandal. Or this one, just a couple days later, conservative ethics abuses have shaken Canadians' faith in Parliament. It's time to raise the bar on accountability.
of the kind of narrative that is directly opposed to that. It's, you know, some very, very profitable oil and gas companies and entrenched interests that
So dealing with a troll. I'm chief cook and bottle washer here. I don't have a profile, but I did get him, guys. So bear with me. It's part and parcel for doing this live for everybody. The struggle is real. There we literally got Justin Trudeau telling people that you should place his climate crisis ahead of your survival, your groceries, and you're probably a selfish, misogynistic racist if you don't, right? So while he's pissing away, billions of dollars running around the world giving money away, sharing What's Up Canada goes against community standards. Thanks for refusing, Stefan. This is what it's like trying to combat the mercenaries that control the media, the digital space, the matrix, right? The matrix. That's what they control, right? So we're gonna look at some of the sacrifices that the government is making that we're supposed to stop eating and feeding our kids for, right? And it really bothers me hearing this about this, and I left a comment about this. Pretty harsh. I'm pretty hard on X. They haven't deplatformed me for about a year now, so we'll see. But I did say that he's going to expand Made to Hungry Kids as soon as he has imported enough new healthcare workers to do the killing. I mean, the bidding. And this is one of my beefs against the other, some of the other talking heads out there in the political charade, political theater. When they're uh, asking for more people to come and replace our healthcare system workers, one of the things that they're going to have to comply with is Mark Holland's expansions to MAID programs. That's on Mark Holland's docket, and that's what you're going to need to be willing to take part in to be a part of Mark Holland's and Trudeau's future moving forward. But meanwhile, the size and cost of the federal bureaucracy is out of control. Trudeau increased the cost of bureaucracy by 73%, added 108,000 extra bureaucrats, and the feds rubber stamped 1.5 billion with a B since 2015. So we've got an article here from Holly Doan. If you don't know Holly Doan, she works at she's one of the Blacklocks reporters team, Blacklocks Media. And I love their stuff because they do deep dive stuff. So she details in this 9-part thread. I want to make sure everybody has access to this one too in the Substack tomorrow. But the federal public service managerial hiring spree since 2016 by department and agency. And she goes on here, and I'll get scroll down here in just a second. But the original documents, cabinet doubled costs of executive ranks in public service, with numerous agencies confirming 100% increase or more in the number of 6-figure managers. So she breaks it down here, literally every agency, and she adds Twitter links or X links to all of the agencies. They went from 25 to 33, 146 to 207 in natural resources, from 24 to 35 at driving nuclear innovation. Driving at what? Over a cliff? Public services and procurement went from 358 to 511, 43% increase. TBS Canada, so that's another 44% increase. And all the way down the spectrum here, we have Canadian human rights with 100% increase. Canadian human rights, they went from 15 to 30. 104% increase at Western Economic Diversification Canada from 23 to 47, and 134% from Shared Services Canada. So all of these stormtrooper clone troopers, 215% increase to the RCMP from 68 to 214. 241% increase for housing infrastructure, from 32 to 109. So what that is a whole lot more people on the Trudeau dole, making sure that they become good clone troopers, enforcing all of the new policy and agency. So when you look at that 1.5 billion and the number of increases to those bureaucrats, when they pass Bill C-293, guess what's going to happen again, folks? This is the part that I wanted to remind people when they talk about it. The bill itself is absolutely a work of fiction of Herman Goering's best wet dream, right? That's what Bill C-293 is. But the boot on the throat isn't going to be felt for a year or two down the road. What will be felt right away, immediately, is exactly that kind of thing, with endless bureaucracy immediately being created and billions of dollars immediately going out the door. That's what happens the minute Bill C-293 passes, and all of these agencies are going to double, triple in size and scope. But don't worry, Justin Trudeau will make sure that Toronto is cleaned up, and that Taylor Swift will have a traffic-free ride and security details and all of the goods in favor of Justin Trudeau. But if anything goes wrong, it's not Justin. On immigration, Trudeau released a video this past weekend explaining what is happening on the immigration front, including changes his government is bringing in to reduce immigration numbers. What was the problem with immigration? Increasingly bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests, Trudeau stated. Interesting, because the last time I checked, colleges and big chain corporations don't run Canada's immigration system. Sure, colleges and universities can ask for more foreign students. Companies can apply to bring in foreign workers, but it was still the federal government that decided whether to approve or deny those visas. Last year, the federal government handed out 682,000 420 student visas. That works out to about 77 approvals every hour of every day in 2023. 77 people got visas. On work permits, they went from 60,000 a decade ago to 200,000 after in 2023. So all of these things are, it's important to remember that it's not Justin Trudeau's fault, right? Just like over in the UK, it's not Keir Starmer's fault that there is not enough money to keep pensioners in the UK warm this winter, while giving billions of pounds to Ukraine for a war it has already effectively lost. Who is this man and who sent them? Well, he is a young global leader who has penetrated your government and made it impossible for the UK to get rid of their invasionary forces, and has chosen to side with them, all at the behest of the hashtag WEF Fourth Reich and Heil Close. That is who you've got. And this is exactly where Trudeau is heading us to. Letting seniors freeze to death is a globalist thing, not just a UK thing. Trudeau is doing it too. The only exception with Canada and the UK is that Trudeau will offer to kill you to stop your suffering. Welcome to Canada. I heard an interesting statistic last night that our government has already murdered more people through their MAID program than soldiers were lost in combat in Vietnam. If that doesn't qualify as a genocide, I don't know what does. And the way this government is going, to the MAID line so that they can retain their dignity, because they know they can't live or survive in tents in Canada. So while we're being replaced, refugees are getting $82,000 a year. We're killing more people, our own citizens, than the Vietnam War. Our fearless, honorable leader has more allegations against him than surviving members of Epstein's client list, I'm sure. And here we are, still headed down this path. Why? Because we tolerate the likes of Mr. Singh, because he can't afford an election. But it's not the same everywhere. This is a report from France, where they've started dumping waste and garbage on government buildings and protesters. Farmer Uprising 2.0 has arrived in France. Well, it's also arrived in the UK, and that's what's making things incredibly difficult for Mr. Starmer now. The Band-Aid has been ripped off. And that's why, I'm so open in my description of he's just another cookie cutter, meat Muppet swamp zombie, weaponized by the Fourth Reich and the Young Global Leaders Program. It really is this simple, and they've infiltrated, or shall I say, penetrated the cabinets of all democratic nations, because we allow people to speak. So how is it actually going at the G20 with Mr. Trudeau? Got this 1 minute, 15-second video. I'm going to play this, and we're going to dissect what they say. I think I have perhaps some alternative theories.
In Rio de Janeiro, a notable incident occurred during the traditional family photo of world leaders. U.S. President Joe Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau were conspicuously absent, raising questions about the reasons behind their missing presence. Reports indicate that logistical issues were primarily to blame. A U.S. official reportedly stated that the family photo was taken earlier than scheduled, catching Biden and Trudeau off guard after they had been engaged in bilateral meetings. The Brazilian organizers also reportedly confirmed that the leaders arrived late, which contributed to the confusion. While some speculated that their absence might be a subtle protest against Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's participation, U.S. officials dismissed this notion, emphasizing that it was purely a matter of timing and organization. But the optics of this situation are significant. It reflects not only on the individual leaders, but also on the current state of international relations. With Biden nearing the end of his presidency and facing political scrutiny at home, his absence from such a pivotal moment may symbolize deeper issues within Western unity at this critical summit.
You don't say. Given that the United States basically just declared war on Russia,
to 9 years as prime minister.
oops, my bad. But and we have to make no mistake, because America did declare war on Russia. Too much going on. Holy mackerel. Sorry, guys. So this was a post that came up from my friend Mark over at Canada Poly. And I agree with him. This is accurate. So let's look at what's actually going on. This is a legitimate assessment. I don't know this other account. I don't follow them, never seen them before, but I read the assessment. And this is, let's be clear, Ukraine did not attack Russia with US ATACMs missiles yesterday. The ATACMS missile systems require periodic course correction and continual in-flight monitoring, inputted by manual operators with US NatSec access codes. Does anyone think we are just giving these codes to the Ukrainian army? These ATACMS use geospatial and weather monitoring technology to self-regulate during its flight time, including minor flight path alterations, orientation changes, altitude changes, etc. This requires the missile system to maintain a continuous uplink to U.S. targeting systems and NATO satellite-based guidance and recon systems. The ATACMS launch procedure requires the entry of classified U.S. missile launch codes. Again, does anyone think the U.S. is just going to give these codes to Ukrainian operators in the middle of a war zone with Russian military intelligence monitoring every byte of data in or out of the area? Ukraine did not attack Russia last night. The U.S. did. And this is the part, that's the part, the sticky part that they're not really talking about. The question that we need to be concerned with is, what are the consequences of this? Why did they do this? And we'll so I got two little clips here, and I'll pull up. And why did they do this? This is going to be a difficult thing for some people, and this is not an opening for assaults or vitriol or horrible language. Remember them. Just hear the message, not who it is, who the message is coming from. Just hear the message.
Netanyahu has done more damage to America than any of our miserable presidents have done in all of their failed policies. Because Netanyahu has used America, misused America repeatedly, because the Zionist lobby is so powerful that Netanyahu basically has had control over the Pentagon to fight wars on behalf of Israeli extremism. And the war in Iraq in 2003 is a Netanyahu war. Right. The attempt to overthrow Bashar al-Assad in Syria starting in 2011 and continuing 14 more years of war is a Netanyahu war. Right. The overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, unleashing instability not only in Libya but across Africa, is a Netanyahu war. Netanyahu and his friends in the U.S. government, these arch Zionists, so-called, have had effective control over the U.S. military. They have cost you and me and the rest of us as taxpayers trillions of dollars. It's quite a dandy deal that the Israel lobby or the say $100 million into campaigns, and it gets trillions out, not billions, trillions out. And so when Netanyahu speaks, it's bizarre to me. It's not who Trump is appointing or naming. It's that the United States of America has let itself be used by a band of extremists on serial wars that have been disastrous for America's interests. Fighting Israel's wars so that Israel can maintain its extremism and its occupation of Palestinian lands and its apartheid rule over Palestinian lands is not in America's interests. And President Trump, who speaks for America, should be saying to Netanyahu, first day, I am president of the United States. You no longer run our country, right, Bibi? That's what I hope. Netanyahu has done more.
So now this is a deep. Canadian is evil. The problem is we're so wrapped up in the rules of language, we're not able to have or allowed to have an open civil discourse about who the bad guys might be that are using a nation or an identity or a culture as shielding from hostage shields. So this is what these guys have been able to do to manipulate our countries and compromise our countries for generations, right? So we're going to get into more of the conflict stuff, but there's this influence has to stop. And I think that we're going to see a huge change in that. In why I say that is I'm becoming more of a fan of Tulsi Gabbard every day. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't keen on her for a lot of years. I knew who she was, but I wasn't keen on her for a lot of years. But the more I listen and the more freely she speaks and the more she says things like this, the more it makes sense as to why she has become kind of a part of this Justice League.
How dare you go against your president, a quote unquote woman of color, first of two female combat veterans ever elected to Congress, very much fit the mold and the talking point of identity politics. All right, we're going to dangle all the trinkets in front of her and show her what this world could look like if she wants to be a part of the team. It didn't last long. President Obama said he would come to Congress to ask for authorization to go to war in Syria. I had come from 2 deployments in the Middle East that changed my life. I asked of the administration, what is our objective? What are you seeking to accomplish? How will you know when you've quote unquote won? What's the exit strategy? Going and launching another war would ultimately not end well for us or the Syrian people. Came out and wrote an op-ed stating this, and immediately got a call from the White House within 24 hours saying, "How dare you?"
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you ask a legitimate questions that will have the implications of other states? So that was one of those things, and I saw that without realizing. I saw her at one point in time when it was pretty obvious when the Democratic Party threw her away. And it just got progressively worse and worse and worse for her. And when she destroyed Kamala in that debate, that was absolutely the end for her as a Democrat in the in the hierarchy of the industrial military complex that actually governs the Democratic Party, which is basically an out in Sweden right now preparing for the nuclear conflict. And at the end of the day, all we have to do is listen to what the Russians say themselves, right? What are the Russians saying about what their plan is?
Несложно предположить географию ответа в случае, если короткий пресс-релиз Белого дома станет реальностью. Под угрозой без малого все европейские столицы, если наши ракеты встанут в Калининграде, Берлин, Варшава, все Прибалты, Париж, Бухарест, Прага. Конечно, американские базы в Германии, Гармия-Шпартенкирхен, казармы Патча, Шпангдалем, Рамштайн. Особое внимание Британии, нашему традиционному врагу, так как против нее будет работать значительная часть Северного флота.
Sorry, guys. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rewind that to the beginning, turn the volume off, and I will read it for you guys rather than force you to listen to the Russian angle of this. So it is not difficult to assume the geography of the response if the White House's short press release becomes a reality. All European capitals are under threat if our missiles stand up in Kaliningrad, Berlin, Washington, Baltics, Bucharest, Prague, of course, American bases in Germany, Garmisch, Partenkirchen, Patch Barracks, Spangdahlem, Ramstein. We will pay special attention to Britain as our traditional enemy, as a significant part of the Northern Fleet will work against it under attack. Washington puts not only London, but the Manchester, Birmingham, and the largest naval base, Devonport, Clythe in Scotland, where's the King's stores nuclear missiles, weapons tried in support of Sheerness, Chatham dockyards in the country of Kent, Britain. At its most vulnerable, basically all it takes is 3 missiles and this civilization will collapse. So that's the message from Moscow in response, and they've lowered the threshold to their nuclear response program as of yesterday, Tuesday. They did that. So that's basically this climax of the orchestra planned to bring the population base from 7 billion back down to the 500 million through nuclear conflict and bioweapons programs. So they are throwing everything they've got at us at once because they are that mortified of Trump, the great disruptor, and the legions of people like us that are out there just fighting for humanity, regardless of who's in power or fighting for power. And the wars go on. The WEF intends to bring us down. The Club of Rome intends to bring us down to this manageable population of 500 million. And the bioweapons program is just another angle of the unrestricted warfare that Rich warned us about, right? But we're fighting back, and we're recognizing more and more aspects of this war that they're waging against us. So I'm not sure where or if gov.x made this or where he got it, but this is kind of a big deal, and this kind of goes to we're not really seeing all of the things that are happening under the threat of so much else that is going on and happening around us. It's inescapable, right? So you may or may not have seen or learned about this.
Breaking news. Twice censored landmark COVID-19 vaccine autopsy study fully peer-reviewed and published. After enduring relentless...
Yep. He made this because he used an automated voice. It is a real person. This isn't a fake thing. He just used AI to put this together.
Censorship. Our systematic review linking COVID-19 vaccines to death is now available for the entire world to read. Nicholas Hulscher, MPH, November 17th, 2024. Share by Nicholas Hulscher, MPH. The largest COVID-19 vaccine autopsy study to date, providing robust evidence that COVID-19 vaccines can cause death, has been officially republished following successful peer review in the journal Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law, a systematic review of autopsy findings and deaths after COVID-19 vaccination. This comes after unethical censorship on 2 occasions. First, removal from preprints with The Lancet, and later, withdrawal by Elsevier after publication in Forensic Science International. Here's what we found. Background. The rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines, combined with a high number of adverse event reports, have led to concerns over possible mechanisms of injury, including systemic lipid nanoparticle, LNP, and mRNA distribution, spike protein-associated tissue damage, thrombogenicity, immune system dysfunction, and carcinogenicity. The aim of this systematic review is to investigate possible causal links between COVID-19 vaccine administration and death using autopsies and postmortem analysis. Methods: we searched PubMed and ScienceDirect for all published autopsy and organ-restricted autopsy reports relating to COVID-19 vaccination up until May 18th, 2023. All autopsy and organ-restricted autopsy studies that included COVID-19 vaccination as an antecedent exposure were included.
Because the state of knowledge has advanced since the time of the original publications, 3 physicians independently reviewed each case and adjudicated whether or not COVID-19 vaccination was the direct cause or contributed significantly to death. Results: we initially identified 678 studies, and after screening for our inclusion criteria, included 44 papers that contained 325 autopsy cases and 1 organ-restricted autopsy case, heart. The mean age of death was 70.4 years. The most implicated organ system among cases was the cardiovascular, 49%, followed by hematological, 17%, respiratory, 11%, and multiple organ systems, 7%. 3 or more organ systems were affected in 21 cases. The mean time from vaccination to death was 14.3 days. Most deaths occurred within a week from last vaccine administration. A total of 240 deaths, 73.9%, were independently adjudicated as directly due to or significantly contributed to by COVID-19 vaccination, of which the primary causes of death include sudden cardiac death, 35%, pulmonary embolism, 12.5%, myocardial infarction, 12%, VITT, 7.9%, myocarditis, 7.1%, multisystem inflammatory syndrome, 4.6%, and cerebral hemorrhage, 3.8%. Conclusions: the consistency seen among cases in this review with known COVID-19 vaccine mechanisms of injury and death, coupled with autopsy confirmation by physician adjudication, suggests there is a high First, this study was inappropriately removed from preprints with The Lancet, SSRN. The paper was posted on the server on July 5th, 2023, and censored in less than 24 hours after receiving massive numbers of downloads.
They
and
took me
reads,
down.
because the study's conclusions are not supported by the study methodology. However, the study initially satisfied SSRN screening criteria, which raises grave suspicions of censorship. Then began the long process of submitting critical COVID-19 vaccine autopsy data to nearly 20 publications, facing repeated rejections without peer review. Approximately a year after our study was wiped from preprints with The Lancet, on June 21st, 2024, the paper was published after successful peer review in Forensic Science International. On July 3rd, 2024, our study was the #1 trending research paper worldwide across all subject areas within the last 2 weeks, according to the Observatory of International Research.
So oop. They remember, for those of you guys that have been around
Breaking news.
since the beginning, we did a series of 50 different doctor talks where all of this throughout 2021, 2022, this platform was the cutting edge of all of that. This platform was basically where, organizations like the Canadian COVID Care Alliance and, had a part in the World Council for Health, all of these people that tried to stop exactly all that. We knew all of this then. We had the evidence then. We were suppressed and people died. And I take this personally. I'm still very, very angry, right? This, I use harsh language when it comes to people like Theresa Tam. I can only describe her as an architect of mass murder. That's all she is. Did you know that she was in charge of the Bio4 lab in Winnipeg when Ebola and Hennepin viruses were sent to Wuhan? Did you know that? But she was only working at the Winnipeg lab, working on all this stuff after she was parachuted in directly from the Wuhan lab in Wuhan, China. That's where she was from. the he, she, it in costume here became the architect of the mass murder of millions and millions of people. The evidence is finally, it's unfortunate the wheels of justice don't move at the speed of insanity. The insanity is incessant. There was 50, more than 50 different of the world's leading experts. Nobody had heard of Dr. Bridle till he came onto my show. Nobody in Canada had heard of Dr. Alexander till he came on my show, or Dr. Risch, or Pelek, or Dr. Panesi. Nobody had heard of any of these doctors until they were on this show first. And they crushed this community and platform protecting that crime spree. And I'm incredibly angry about this, because this quote, I read this every day and I say it at least once a day. We have failed to bring justice, and we cannot build the future on injustice. And where does this injustice come from? That is part of the problem, right? That's what we dig into here every single night. And yeah, she is a genocidal murderer, right? I won't be able to keep up the comments here for a while, guys. I get a little raged out and it's tough for me to read. But understanding that it's lobbyists. When you reverse engineer these mass murders like crime scenes, and anybody that's, had a passion or a hobby or an appetite for crime stories, you kind of develop this sense of reverse engineering. Humans are humans are humans. Monsters, monsters. Taters, tate. And that's just the way they are. There's nothing new on this planet when it comes to humanity. It's just recognizing the patterns of bad behavior. And when it comes to patterns of bad behavior here in Canada, one of the biggest problems of bad behavior that we have is the number of NGOs and nonprofits, non-governmental organizations. And I brought this up on a stream the other night with somebody in the UK. I think it was Jim Ferguson, where Canada has more than 170,000 nonprofits and charities. Those are the people that drive the money through people like this to achieve goals like this. And ultimately, we end up in conflicts as distraction to keep us from getting to this and this. And this is how part of their strategy of working together and legitimizing the genocide of many, many millions. Right? Now, some breaking news here in Canada. Back to Randy.
The other Randy, the honorable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Reeder Lakes, at the conclusion of asking his question.
A legitimate terrorist there, guys. This clown in Clown World, in Swamp Zombie, Meat Muppet caricature, Mr. Ahmed Hussein, convicted terrorist, Trudeau's right hand, get her done guy.
As he was sitting down, called the Minister of Workforce Employment and Workforce Development Cocaine Randy. That is extremely unparliamentary. And I asked you, Mr. Speaker, to ask him to withdraw that.
Speaker, I'm sure that I was referring to the other Randy.
They've been dodging who the hell Randy is that's tied to the 210 kilos of cocaine, but just so happens to have the same mailing address and other coincidental relationships with Randy Brasseau, or Bosano, I guess his name is. But all of that's been holding up because of the Green Slush Fund scandal and scams, and millions of dollars that Meat Muppet has managed to scam out of the syndicate cartel gig that he's got. He's finally now leaving breaking news, he's decided to step down. Him and Prime Minister Trudeau got together and have agreed that Mr. Boissonnault will step away from cabinet effective immediately, and he will focus on clearing the allegations made against him. A statement from the PMO's office today, because I'm sorry, folks, he got his identity confused, and he wasn't sure what kind of an indigenous Indian tribe he needed to be in order to scam more money out of programs and get his hands on more millions. So, we'll just forget about that, 210 kilograms of coke issue and pretend like you're just sorting things out. You can just take a little leave of absence from the parliament, and then we wonder how we end up with a leader like Justin Trudeau, who probably has fewer ethics, morals, and values than Satan himself. But hey, this is what we got, right? This is the case of Canadian politics. So absolutely shameful, the embarrassment. Canada used to be a respected nation. How can we expect anybody to respect Canada anymore? And they just keep shuffling seats in different places so long as they're good servants of the meat muppets in charge. And on that note, we go to British Columbia, where Dre posted, "Buckle up, British Columbians. David Eby's new chief of staff is Jim Rutkowski, Rachel Notley's principal secretary when she ran Alberta into the ground with her far-left policies. Brace yourselves, the same progressive crony elites are circling back to pick British Columbia bone dry." So what that is if you don't know Rachel Notley, her husband is the kind of the mucky muck of public relations for some of the largest unions. We'll just say that. And so this is bringing the unions back into compliance or support, or to bring them into alignment with Mr. Eby in British Columbia so that they could secure their crime syndicate in BC once again, using the unions to do so. So I'm sure that there's some backroom door money going to Mr. Singh for that, because the unions is kind of his brand of syndicate, and the lobbyists will do the rest. And when it comes back to lobbyists, I'm not going to go into depth on this thread here, but I wanted to make sure to include this, because if we're going to pick on lobbyists, let's not play partisan with it. Let's go after a bunch of them at the same time on the same night. And hey, if I'm going to get kicked off of a few more social media platforms, I might as well do it right. So if they're going to go after me for the other stuff, and it's not enough, we'll make sure that we go after the child butchery nonprofits and NGOs. And Megan Brock here from what is it, the Daily Caller News Foundation, puts together this thread on X, where a small band of pediatricians pushed medical organizations into nixing age minimums for sex changes. So they got rid of the lower age requirements, and it was literally nonprofits and lobbyists that put pressure on medical institutions to give them more meat to carve up. I can't make it any more based than that, and so we're seeing literally these are the same people that are now shifting from Alberta. They get kicked out of the swamp in Alberta, so now they're going to BC, which is probably already one of the most socialist regions of the country, and compromised. And they're tightening up. They're tightening up. They're contracting to the most loyal servants and whatnot. And I wish I could say that there was one province that was actually escaping it. And I sit back and I can't see a single one, not even Alberta. And this is a post from Marty up north. I don't agree. Actually, there's about a 50-50 of things that I agree with with Marty, but it is what it is. Civil discourse is exactly what we need to have with people that we don't always agree with, right? So that's what I do appreciate about Marty, but he lives on the outside looking in. So, but he pays a lot of attention. I don't know what his beef is with Alberta. He's in the Yukon. He's a Yukon guy, but he brings up some valid points here in Alberta that after the 91.5% approval rate, like, that's pretty impressive. Alberta's inflation is the highest in the country. Unemployment is climbing. Immigration is out of control. She said she wanted to double the population. Housing is unaffordable. Gasoline is $1.48 a liter. Insurance companies are threatening to leave. The power grid is unstable. Investment is fleeing. The budget is $70 billion and climbing. Kids are injected with poison. Our birth rate is dropping. Our life expectancy is declining. Our rights and freedoms are about to be limited. And now a totally useless ministry just declared a transgender day of remembrance. Alberta's my home province. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Who controls this shit in Alberta? Who is pulling Danielle's strings? Because with a 95% or 91.5% approval rate, that kind of makes a lie out of either the 91.5 approval rate for being a conservative leader, or that she has control of anything that's happening within her in her cabinet for them to declare a sick man problem as a day of remembrance. Get it together, Alberta. You can do better. That cannot be accepted and normalized, I'm afraid. So we're kind of, how are we doing for time here? Let's see here what I got left. Okay. Got kind of an unusual treat, one you didn't see coming. I know I was talking a little bit about Nazis and the Fourth Reich. I bring up the Fourth Reich a lot. And unless you've been around here for a while on this platform, it might not make sense. But after the next couple of clips and segments that I've got for you guys, it will make perfectly clear sense. And I kind of have to admit, I think I caught CBC doing a random act of journalism. WTF, right? WTF. But in case you're not aware, there is still 90 years post World War II. They're still lying to Canadians. And there's an inquiry going on right now about Nazis in Canada, and nobody's covering it. Nobody's showing you guys what the shenanigans are, the sketchy bullshit that they're using to still 90 years later keep lying and hiding to Canadians. So I've got a little example of that. I'm going to play this. It's a 12-minute clip. But listen, and you know, this makes it understandable as to why people don't know what's going on, because how the hell can you suffer through this kind of insanity and stupidity? Right? It's just, if you have a shred of a brain cell left, this will make you want to shake it out your ear. But this is government in Canada. Now, this is bureaucracy in Canada at its finest, still hiding Nazi truth from Canadians in the world.
And I will be lenient. Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to use my time to move a motion you've all received notice for regarding Canada's ongoing protection of Nazis who were allowed to enter Canada during and in the immediate aftermath of the Holocaust. This is a shameful part of our history, and I would urge all my colleagues to support this motion. We just marked Remembrance Day. All of us, I'm sure, attended ceremonies honoring the Canadian soldiers who've served our country. We vowed never to forget the sacrifices of the many Canadians who served and died throughout history. This year also marked the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the historic Battle of Normandy, where Canadians played a pivotal role in liberating Europe and the world from fascism. The Battle of Normandy came at a heavy cost. 19,000 Canadians were killed or wounded by the Nazis. In France, they remember. It was very emotional for me and my family when this summer on a private visit, I heard the playing of O Canada and heard the appreciation from a town liberated by Canadian soldiers. 80 years later, they remember. They remember what the fight against Nazism and fascism was all about. This is personal for many of us. Today, I can't stop thinking of many members of my family who fought the Nazis. They knew what was at stake, the very future of humanity itself. I think of my family and my community. I think of my family in Greece who suffered under Nazi occupation and fascist brutality. I think of the Jewish communities across Greece and in the village next to my papus, my grandfathers, that were wiped out by the Holocaust, an absolute result of Nazi ideology. And I think of others who have family members who were victims of the Nazis, or her family who never got that opportunity to come to Canada because they were turned away by a country that was far too comfortable saying no to Jews, the victims of the Holocaust, but yes to too many perpetrators. Canadians deserve to know how, according to the Deschênes Commission, Nazis were welcomed into this country. Many Jewish, Polish, and Ukrainian organizations have been clear, the names have been released, need to be released. And yet Library and Archives Canada, which is under the Minister of Heritage, said no, this is shameful. So I want to move my motion that given that the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage regrets the continued protection given by the Minister of Canadian Heritage to the estimated 900 Nazis that were allowed to enter Canada after the Second World War, etc., be supported in this meeting today.
I just wanted to inform the committee that Ms. Ashton gave notice of this motion in writing in English and French on Monday, September the 23rd. So it can be tabled on the floor today. And so I have to ask if anyone wants to discuss or debate this motion. Seeing no hands up, I think we're going to have to call the question on the motion since there's no debate.
Madam Chair, I think there's two hands.
Excuse me, I'm just going to call the hands that are up. Mr. Souza.
Yes, I want clarity. I mean, we're just new to the committee, and I just wanted to have time to reflect on what's being proposed to determine if we should adjourn or not the debate.
Ms. Ashton.
Yes, I can certainly elaborate. The motion that I submitted on Monday, September 23rd, indicates that given that the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage regrets the continued protection given by the Minister of Canadian Heritage to the estimated 900 Nazis that were allowed to enter Canada after the Second World War by refusing to release their names and refusing to listen to organizations representing victims of the Nazis, the committee invite the Minister of Canadian Heritage to instruct Libraries and Archives Canada to release the names of the 900 Nazis before International Holocaust Remembrance Day on Monday, January 27, 2025, and that this motion be reported to the House.
Mr. Shampoo, Monsieur Shampoo, matin.
Madame la Présidente, encore une fois,
Madam Chair, once again, Ms. Ashton has a surprise here for us at the end of the committee. There's a long discussion here that we could have, and I'd be happy to discuss it. I have very serious concerns regarding this motion. First, because there was a report and an investigation.
This is where the Liberal Nazis are, because they didn't just come here and pretend like they weren't Nazis anymore in their brains. They acted like they were one of us, I'm sure. But those are some mighty big buts given the situation that we find ourselves in today. Does anybody out there believe that the Nazis just stopped when they got here? They just stopped Naziing inside? Does anybody actually genuinely believe that? And why can we still not know who the hell this is? Now, they're fighting over 900 names. I've got a piece after this. It's going to blow your minds.
Investigation done.
But this is, yeah, I really wanted everybody to see the depths of the Liberal gobbledygook protection that they run, the interference that they run, the obfuscation, and that, how hard they will fight for the truth to come, to keep the truth from coming out. This is just so offensive.
And even then, the motion mentions about 900 or so, when we've heard 800 elsewhere. The numbers are different. Now, were these people Nazis? Not necessarily. The investigation showed that the majority of these people were not suspected of anything, and
we're going to cover that
right
rise
away.
up on.
And some of the other issues
Just
I'd
wait.
like to raise is that these were people who were investigated, and I think there were very few, maybe a dozen, that were investigated after the Duchesne Commission, and it was thought that there was no need to go further. So this is to try to release the names of 800 to 900 people, the vast majority of whom are people who very likely are deceased and whose descendants are well integrated into Canadian society, and nothing that would be reprehensible in terms of their parents or grandparents. I think this is extremely delicate as a situation, and Ms. Ashton brings this motion at the end of the committee when we really should have had more time to debate it. So I'm very, once again, uncomfortable with this kind of situation. For this kind of motion when we're talking about CBC Radio-Canada. Point of order, Madam Chair.
Sorry, who's saying point of order?
Ms. Ashton.
Ms. Ashton, you're calling
Yes,
on a
thank you,
point of
Madam
order?
Chair. I know this committee has made issue of trying to assume where members would be coming from. I used my time to put forward a motion that I submitted almost 2 months ago, and on the week of Remembrance Day. So, if people want to debate the truthfulness of the Duchesne Commission, which I find deeply problematic, but to impugn my motives on the week of Remembrance Day on a motion that I submitted on something as serious as protecting Nazis, I hope we can move to a vote as soon as possible.
Anne?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Yes.
your hand was up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I too am perplexed as to why, with this special meeting that was called to address CBC and the minister, why this has come up at this point. Many of us are not regular members of this committee, and I am not comfortable with proceeding further on this. So I move now to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn, and we only have, we've just got 5 more minutes left on the clock. So, yes, shall I call a vote on adjourning?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I find it shame we're adjourning on such an important debate about releasing the names.
Ms. Ashton, sorry, I'm calling for a vote. Thank you. Clerk?
And the vote is, shall the debate be adjourned? Madam Dorozowski.
Julie Zorowitz. I agree. Adjourn debate.
It's a joke to them.
Mr. Long.
Point of order.
Who is calling for point of order? I can't
And
see.
that's Brenda.
Brenda, yes?
Yes.
We're in the middle of a vote, Ms. Shanahan, but go ahead.
The point of order is to adjourn the meeting, or is it to adjourn debate?
We are voting on the motion to adjourn. We can't debate it, but we can vote on it. So go ahead, please, Clerk.
She's looking for clarification.
I've seen Cub Scout meetings with
Yeah,
better
sorry,
organized.
Madam Shanahan. Are you asking to adjourn the debate on the motion? I'm not clear what you're adjourning.
Yes, to adjourn debate.
All right, so go ahead, Clerk.
And a motion to adjourn debate on the motion. Mr. Long.
Yes.
Exactly.
Madame Lalonde.
We
Madam Shanahan,
We,
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Waugh,
No.
Mr. Couric,
No.
Mr. Gould,
No.
Mr. Duncan,
No.
Mr. Champu,
Oui.
Madam Ashton,
No.
that's yay pour 6, nays contre 5.
So the debate is adjourned, and we have,
And that's that. That's that. This Nikki Ashton, she follows the due process, and then just gets shut down on a whimsy. Oh, we don't feel like we're not comfortable doing this, so maybe we're not going to talk about it. So this one, after I listened to it, I realized I had to play it. So guys, this one isn't a video. This is just an audio. So if you got some stuff to run around and do for the next 20 minutes, to just listen to this one is critical. And I am really stunned, I'm telling you, to say that this is a CBC radio piece. I don't know how the hell this happened. I do see some bits. There were some bits in this where they're trying to whitewash it, right? But it's frightening to me that, after what we just watched, the real fight going on, that they even went to the effort to try to whitewash it. So this is one of those things that always makes me dig. So these guys, all they did was give me some threads to pull. So I wanted to share this with you guys because they actually talk. They actually talk about some of the bigger context of why Canada still has a Nazi problem. And I'll try not to interrupt too often.
Hi, I'm Jamie Preston. In the mid-1980s, the Canadian government tasked a commission to investigate whether a considerable number of Nazi war criminals settled in Canada after the Second World War. The Commission of Inquiry on War Criminals, headed by retired Quebec Judge Jules Deschênes, looked into this, but for decades, many of the Commission's findings never saw the light of day. That includes 900 names of alleged Nazi war criminals who lived in Canada, contained in RCMP files and other documents. Jewish groups and Holocaust historians around the world have been calling for its relief. But last week, the Canadian government shut down an access to information request for it, saying that it could be harmful to Canadian interests and international relations. Jamie Kersner Roberts is the Policy and Advocacy Director for the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center. They've been fighting to get these names released for decades.
Our last hope is at least for the truth to come out. What Canada did in the years following the war is shameful. For us to let in our enemy who are brave soldiers, fought and too often died to defeat them and their ideology, for us to then turn around and allow them to enter our country with a life of impunity, never having to answer for their crimes, and by actively hiding the truth about these individuals and their crimes. The government has shown itself, unfortunately, complicit.
Jamie says she's heard from a number of Holocaust survivors who suspected that the criminals who killed their families lived near them, including Peggy Libman.
When she was a little girl, her family...
That is exactly what people are living through right now that have come here to Canada to get away from the Taliban, ISIS, radical Islam, and all of that brings. And now they're here watching their tormentors that Trudeau has brought over, and they come here with bad intentions. So we're literally repeating the cycle. Why? Because we never finished the first one.
They were kidnapped by the Nazis and taken against their will to a concentration camp, where this little girl watched as one man stood on top of a hill and selected members of her family who were brought to the hill and shot. Over this 2-day period in which Faggy Littman was personally there to witness, 10,000 Jews were ordered shot into a ditch. Fast forward many years after the war, Faggy lost most of her family in the Holocaust. She came
the day when I found out that he was living as my neighbor, and he lives 3 streets away.
this man that she had
are still being kept secret. Longtime defense reporter for the Ottawa Citizen, David Pugliese, is here with me today. We're going to talk about this list of alleged Nazi war criminals that settled in Canada after World War II. He's been covering the story for a long time. We'll talk to him about what we do know about those on the list and why it remains such a challenge to get this history out in the open.